Hey everyone, this is Jay Stein, and this is the Devy Royale, and today we're going to do a little teaching on how to set up a college fantasy football league or the college side of a campus to Canton league on Fantrax. So stick with me, and we'll get right to it. Okay, so yeah, we're setting up that league on Fantrax. You go to fantrax.com/home, and you come down here to pick your sport. We're going to select the NCAA football version of this, and then we're going to go down to the college football commissioner button. You can set up the league by using the Fantrax default systems, or if you have a code or you've played in other leagues, you can use those other leagues and the settings to select. So we're just going to use the Fantrax default setting. There's lots of different ways to set the points up. If you scroll over each of these buttons, it sort of describes what each of those are. I'd say the most common is this head-to-head point setup, but you can change that thing further in the process. So here you're just going to name the league, and it's whatever you want, whatever you decide, whatever your theme is. And you got the team name here. You just pick your team name. I'm going with a little bit of a Ted Lasso theme here. Ted Lasso Campus Canton League 2 and AFC Richmond as my league name. League type, you got redraft, keeper, and dynasty. Very self-explanatory. If you play fantasy football, you know what those are. If you're playing Campus to Canton, usually you're selecting that dynasty version. You pick the draft type. Usually you're picking an online standard type of draft, but they do provide for auction drafts and offline drafts if that's something you're interested in. That you can manage your league fees here on Fantrax as well. I typically used LeagueSafe, but they do give you that option. I haven't used it, but if there is somebody that has used it, let us know what it's like in the comment section. So basically, after you click those things, then you're going to create this league. And so here's the new league. We have right here are some buttons that you can use to send the league out to the different league mates. But where you want to live in the commissioner as a commissioner is in this commissioner tab, and then league setup is where you kind of want to live and set all these rules. And so, like I said before, you're able to change those scoring systems down here. If you want to do a huge league where you have duplicate players, you can adjust that here. But this is also where you can copy your league link and send it to your different teams. And this is where you input this next button, this teams and schedules button is where you input the teams and schedules. Now, after we go through each one of these tabs, as you complete the tab, I just want to make sure that you come down here and click save or save and continue, because it's very important as you're making those adjustments that you're saving at each stage, or you could lose some of those adjustments. So here is where, just like Sleeper MFL, you can enter the different different league mates in here, their emails, and then send an invitation to them, in addition to sending a link for them to sign up as well. So that's sort of where you input the different owners that are going to play in your league. This next tab right here is the divisions. You can set up divisions a lot of times in the Campus to Canton leagues that I've seen. You play with no divisions, but you can add each of the divisions there. Here is your schedule. The standard is weeks 1 through week 14 as your total season. That's including playoffs. And so you can change a little bit of those settings, but if you wanted to end it in week 13 and sort of adjust the way that the playoffs go, I know sometimes you have that in the NFL where people don't like to have their players playing in week 17 or 18 in the playoffs. So you can just sort of adjust that on the fly, but then the playoffs here, this is where you'd adjust where the regular season ends. So in my leagues, I have the regular season end in week 11, and then you can set how many teams you want in the playoffs. That goes by how many weeks you want to do it. So if you do 6, over 3 weeks. So you can see right here, playoffs will begin in the scoring period of week 12. So you got 12, 13, and 14, and 6 teams in the playoffs. That's a typical, playoff setup. And then if you want to, you can hit this reseed each playoff round. So basically, after they complete a round, the highest seed plays the lowest seed, and the second highest plays the second lowest. And that is an interesting way to do it, but just really up to you on how you want to do that. And then these are the matchups. The Fantrax system will generate a schedule for you. When the league year rolls over, I'd recommend coming in here and hit regenerate a regular season matchup schedule. So you get a little bit of a different week to week schedule, and it's a little different from year to year from that perspective. And then this is where you'd set up those consolidation brackets. So teams 3 and 4 that just missed out on the championship, you can set up a 3 and 4 consolidation bracket. You can also set up sort of a toilet bowl, teams 11 and 12. To play for, first pick or whatever, however you want to play it. And then, whoops, I didn't even hit. I got to hit save here. We're going to go over to the player pool here. There is customization that you can do here. I'd say in most standard leagues, you're playing with all Division I football, which is that's automatically set there. But you can hit yours, set yours to custom, and then take out conferences if you want to. But this is the standard all Division I football teams and all the players that come from those. The next thing is roster setup. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to set up sort of a best ball rosters using my other league that I manage. And again, this is the same setup here. This is a Campus Canton league. So we're going to go over to rosters here. And this is the way this is set up is for best ball. So a lot of times you'll see on the NFL side, you'll have the league setup where you're managing who you're starting and who you're not starting. On a lot of Campus to Canton leagues, there are ways that you can set up where you have starters, but a lot of times the Campus Canton leagues turn into on the college side turn into best ball leagues on the college side. So there's still head-to-head matchups, but you're not doing the ins and outs of starting players each week. And they've made some really cool options here in Fantrax where if you are starting, you have the ability to set alternates on those starters. If, for instance, you find out that a player who's projected to start ends up not playing, Fantrax will let you, if it meets certain qualifications, substitute one of those alternates that you had preset in there for those players. But we're just going to go through these best ball settings in that situation where we have 45 players. We're not having alternates in starting positions because we're not starting. We just have our full roster, and the best scores for each week get added to the total. So a lot of times in the Campus Canton leagues and college football leagues, you have a very large roster size. Typically, what I've seen is 35 to 45 rostered players. And so we're doing the 45 here. This is what I have in here. And we check this ball, this count best players, best ball, count best period. We're checking that, and count best uses roster slots. So those 3 boxes get checked. And then what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to go down here to set out how many starters are you counting each week. So it'll automatically count everything, but you have to figure out how many starters you're going to have each week. We've seen this transition to Superflex. I'd say in college football, the standard is more of a 2 QB system. And, if you think of the NFL, you have, 32 teams. In college football, you have well over 100 teams. And so there's a lot more starters at the college level. So typically what I've seen from a starter perspective is you have 2 QBs. Now you can set it up to be super flex, but I think this does put a little bit of more emphasis on the QB position, which is nice for the college fantasy football piece of it. So we got 2 QB starters, 2 running back starters, 3 wide receiver starters, 1 tight end starter, and then 3 flex positions. So that's the running back, wide receiver, tight end positions. So, that's sort of a large starting pool, but when you have 45 roster spots, it makes a lot of sense, and it's best ball. Remember, so this does make a lot of sense. If you say reduce the total on your roster from 45 to 40 or 40 to 35, maybe you think about reducing either those 3 flex spots to 2, or you make one of the QBs a super flex instead of a 2 QBs format. So those are all interesting. You'll notice here in this position max on team, in order for it to save and for it to fully show up, you're going to want to put the max position of each position as the total max players, and that'll make the whole thing work. Sometimes it doesn't work if you don't do that. Technically, somebody could draft a team of 45 QBs, and they wouldn't have a starting lineup, but you're giving them the ability to do that through this piece. But that's not probably great strategy, and probably nobody's going to do that. But that's the way that this works here in this system. So that's pretty good. Then we're going to move on to scoring. You can set the scoring up however you want. The one thing I'd say is, if you're going to score positions differently, you're probably going to need to check this box differently. So let's say you wanted to add a tight end premium. And this is the league that I already have set up. So you're going to add a receptions. You're going to give them 1 point per reception. And you'll see this little asterisk here. Because I have this box check, score positions differently, and I have a tight end premium league, I'm going to assign the 2 points per reception for tight ends, and that's going to score a little bit differently for tight ends. So the way you do that is you have this score positions differently. You need to make sure that you're adding a points per reception. So there is a line item of points per reception in there. And then you click on the position and you put in the signed points after putting the receptions in up here. So you're going to sort of add that category to it. And that's how you set up the tight end premium. You don't need to do anything for game schedule or preferences on the scoring piece of it. But, you can set up the scoring however you want. Some people do, passing touchdowns instead of 6, they do 4. But really, it's really all the way up to you. This is where you enter in those things. And just as a reminder, if you want to do like a tight end premium, you have to hit this score positions differently check box to make that work. So now we're going to go into these transaction periods. We're doing best balls, so this actually page doesn't really matter too much because you're not setting lineups here. But this is where if a player or if a manager needs to come in and set their lineups, you want to make sure that they're setting their lineups on time, who goes in, who goes out. Generally, if you're going to set up trades, a lot of times I see this question all the time, like, the manager or the commissioner sets up the league and the different managers are asking, I can't trade. I don't know how to trade. You can set this up so the commissioner enters all trades. That's one way to put a lockdown on the league. Usually I leave the managers open the trades. So the managers propose their own trades and it gets approved. There's a place to put in a trade deadline. That'll be in your bylaws. If you want to put the trade deadline in there, you can. I'm moving more and more to leagues where we don't have trade deadlines, but that could be something that you're interested in. And then you can set up a voting system where you can vote down a trade. I personally don't think that you should do that, but it is available here. I generally check no. These boxes will not be checked when you first start these on. So you want to check allowed trades before the draft, allowed trades during the draft, allowed trades across multiple periods, allowed trades to execute even if rosters become illegal, then they'll let them do how they want to do. But these boxes need to get checked in order for your league to start trading. A lot of leagues that I'm in, that trading happens often and fast. So if you want that, while you're in the draft, if you want to be trading, you got to click these boxes. And then the claims and drops, different campus to Canton leagues have it set up differently. College fantasy football leagues have it set up differently. You can have it where there are no transactions. That's a very beginner's mentality. I love that when I was first starting out, because when you do the freshman and supplemental draft the next year, there tends to be a few players that got missed in that first year that then become available in that supplemental draft. That's really cool. I'd say as you get more experienced, what typically happens is you have one or two windows where you'll do a waiver wire, and you can do it as fab bidding, or you can do it first come first serve, with the order being sort of reverse of standings. You can set that waiver wire up process however you want. With the 45-man rosters, and trading and all that stuff, generally when you want things to shut down kind of, I always hit commissioner performs all claims and drops, just to like sort of shut stuff down, and hopefully. But when you want your managers to go in there and start dropping players that are gone or any of that stuff, you're going to have to open that back up. And then if you want to use the waiver wire and set up certain particular weeks where you would have a waiver wire first come first serve, you check this box, and it's pretty self-explanatory on how you want to set up these waiver wires. You can do it, like I said, bidding, fab, automated priority order, in whichever way you want to do it. But I would just make sure that if you're going to limit the waiver wires to 1 or 2 weeks, that you're turning that button off and on, so that nothing happens where half the league went and picked somebody up and half the league wasn't able to pick people up. So just make sure you're turning that button on and off. If you leave it as commissioner performs all claims and drops, that'll help you out for when we talk about placeholders and the such. So remember, you're every time you're saving before you move on. Salaries and contracts, if you're going to set up a contract league, you can adjust those here. And then the draft. Generally, you're going to do this long or live online standard draft that's regular and slow. You pick a date that you want it to be on, and the starting time for Eastern Standard Time is where you have it. But just make sure you're paying attention to that, and you're telling your league mates what that standard starting time is. Then, if you're doing the startup, you're going to set this number of rounds to the number of active roster spots in this league that we're setting up. We did 45. Well, if it's 35, if you're having the max roster spots be 35, you're going to set that up to 35. And then the year after that, this will be in your bylaws. The year after that, you're just drafting freshmen and people that are not on the teams that sort of got missed. Your Joe Burrows type of players that nobody had on their roster but then went off, and you can pick those guys up. Trey Benson, Joe Burrow, the type of guys. And so you would adjust that down to 15 rounds for the next year. Generally, I go with 8-hour time limit per picks, and then shut the clock off from midnight to 10 a.m. You can set that up however you want to. Generally, if you're going to go with an 8-hour clock, just communicate with the league mates and tell them you have the full 8 hours. It's your 8 hours to use, but we're trying to keep this thing moving and going. With 45 rounds, there's a lot of rounds to get through. And the hope is that, remember that college football season starts before the NFL football season. So we want to just make sure that we got that done. I generally don't force auto picks in campus to Canton leagues. If you miss your pick, you miss your pick. You can come back and grab a player at any time. You just tell the commissioner will adjust your player in there. But you get 8 hours here. If you're going to use all the 8 hours and not pick, I don't like to have the auto computer pick. That's just my personal preference, but you can change it to the computer picks after a certain amount of picks that he misses, or however you want to set it up. Generally, when you're doing the startup, you're going to try and do that snake and serpentine option. as the way to do a startup, and you can also do like a third round reversal if that's something that's interesting to you. I don't do those, but I do the snake serpentine. Then when you do your freshman and supplemental draft the next year, then you're doing fixed, so it's non-snake, so it's just sort of linear. The person that earns the first pick overall in the draft, he picks first in the first round, second round, third round, and this is where you can sort of set up the order of the teams based on how those finished. And then finally here on these tabs, this fees and prizes, that's where you can collect the fees in this Fantrax treasurer application. Haven't used it, but that they do offer that here. And then I would just say here, this is the Keeper Dynasty League and, everything that's going on. If you're going to trade future picks here, if you're allowing future trade picks, remember to adjust this to how many rounds that you have for the supplemental. So if you have 45 man rosters, some of those players are going to not be relevant, so you'll drop them. Some of those players are going to move on to the NFL, so you'll move them up, and then you'll have this 15-round supplemental draft that has all those players that were missed and all the freshmen in there. Just make sure you adjust that to the 15 rounds instead of the 45 rounds. So when people are trading future picks, that you're not going too far out. And I would also recommend in your bylaws to collect fees 1 year ahead if you are allowing trading of future picks. The other thing I'd put in here is this is where you can select your constitution, or you can put in your constitution and bylaws. So this is where I put in links to your different your bylaws. So like say you keep your bylaws in Google Docs, you can just go ahead and make sure it's open, copy the link, and then throw it in here. And so people can just link to those bylaws anytime they want to. If and when you start your league on MFL, My Fantasy League, for the NFL side in those campus formats, or on Sleeper, you can put that league link in there. And if you are doing those campus to Canton leagues, and even the college football, fantasy football leagues, you're going to want to keep a league spreadsheet. And the reason is that you're going to have placeholders. So Fantrax does a great job. They get better and better each year of entering the new freshmen into the player pool, but sometimes they don't get all of the freshman players in there before you start your draft. So we'll go through that here when we go through and enter your draft here on the other league. But you're going to want to keep that league sheet and keep track of those placeholders. So you'll draft somebody that is at the very bottom of the list, and that'll be a placeholder for you going forward. But that is basically how you set up the league. So I'm gonna just show you an example of what a placeholders tab might look like here. So this was our startup draft. This is what the placeholders look like, and we've had placeholders for each of these years: 2023, 2022, and our startup draft for this year. And basically, I'm keeping track of the pick, who's picking them, the player, the position, the college, the placeholder. So who you used as your placeholder pick for that, and when this completed column remains open. So like remains open until you actually do the commissioner claim and drop. So the way that you do that is you got to make sure that your transactions, claims and drops is set to commissioner performs all claims and drops. And then you go into this transactions tab and you hit claims and drops, and you find the team and you do a plus and a minus, and that's how you get rid of those players that are there. So that makes it pretty easy when you're doing that. Now, if we're going to go back to this league that we set up and we're going to enter this draft room, which hopefully it goes to, I didn't set the date on this yet. Hold on. Oh, okay. So I need to set the date on this one real quick, and then we'll enter the live draft room. Actually, let's just enter the live draft room of my league here. So we'll go to here, and then we'll enter this draft room. Here we are. Hopefully this goes. Okay, so this is what the draft room looks like. And here's your chat. And these are the players the player pool that you can draft. Now, remember when we're looking at the those players that haven't been input in the system, and you're um, doing a placeholder for them, what you do is you find a player that's at the very bottom. So what I generally, as a rule, is I like to tell people is use the armed services, the like Air Force, Army, and then scroll all the way to the bottom to one of these guys and use those guys as your placeholders. Air Force, Army, Navy. You don't want to go too high on the board, but just go down to the bottom if you are using those placeholders. And you can enter after you make that pick. You can enter in the chat that guy is a placeholder for this person, and then you'd want to keep track of it in your league spreadsheet. So that's kind of the placeholders. Then the last piece of this here is I just wanted to just talk very quickly about trading. Trading is a little bit different in Fantrax than it is in say Sleeper. It's not quite as intuitive. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to another person's roster here, and I'm going to just show you really quickly. Let's say I want to trade for Carson Beck, right? So what I want to do is this little trade tab here by this player. I want to hit that, and that brings up this pop-up box here on the bottom. What you can do here is at this point you can say Carson Beck, and you want to trade draft picks as well. So Carson Beck, and you also want the first round 1 pick 2 of the 2024 draft for them. So you add him to it. Now we've got 2 players here, and then you hit continue, and it takes you back to your roster. So at that point, what you'd want to do to build this trade is then add your side of the trade. So I'm going to trade Quinn Ewers, and I'm going to trade pick 5 back. So you can see sort of how we built this trade up. You got Carson Beck, pick 1.02 in the 2014 draft, and then you have Quinn Ewers, pick 1.05 in the draft. So that would be at that point. Then you'd hit submit, and that would enter the trade in there. And I would just say that for people that aren't unfamiliar with the system, it's tough to get in there and learn all those things. But those are some quick pointers that I'd have for starting those campus can't leagues and some of the main settings that I'd have. So again, remember, once you start the league, you go to Commissioner League Setup. Commissioner League Setup, that's the way to make sure you're saving at each one of those points down the lines. If you are the commissioner and you are having trouble, if you go Commissioner tab, League Setup, that's where we are right now. But you can also go down to this All Options button. This All Option button gives you a ton of different options in terms of being commissioner and some of the things that you might have to do as the commissioner. All right, so that's it. Thank you so much. Really appreciate you guys watching. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to anybody that's at the Devy Royale. That's Kevin Coleman at Du Bois 22, Christian Williams, myself at _ Jason Stein, and anybody else would be more than willing to help you out on this. This is hopefully for you, and hopefully you figured out how to set up those campus to Canton or college fantasy football leagues using that Fantrax system. So yeah, please reach out and join the Patreon. Definitely join the Patreon. We have lots of things we offer there. The 2024 Devy Draft Guide. If you want those Devy rankings, we have Devy Dynasty and combined rankings. We got 2025 big boards, mock drafts, all kinds of things. I have my own stats in there as well, which are pretty fun and interesting to look at. So yeah, please come join the Devy Royale. It's really cool. And thanks for watching.